This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Last week, we brought you the story of a local woman harassed and frightened by a stranger just because she's Muslim. Today, crews cleaned anti-Semitic graffiti from a pedestrian underpass in Winnipeg. Reports of suspected hate-related crimes tied to the conflict between Israel and Hamas are on the rise for Muslims and Jews in Manitoba. Tonight, the Jewish Federation hosts a presentation about responding to hate. CBC's Josh Crabb brings us more and a warning. The images in this report are distressing.
Belle Jarneski with the Jewish Heritage Centre of Western Canada watches a video showing the hateful graffiti. The walkway below Fermor Avenue near Nyakwa Park was marked in red spray paint with swastikas, the SS insignia, the Star of David with a line through it, and a threat towards Jews.
I don't think I've ever felt unsafe until this last month. I've never seen or heard the kind of vitriol expressed by so many people publicly.
Crews on Wednesday morning covered the graffiti. Winnipeg police weren't able to say immediately if they were aware. The city says if someone sees graffiti, they should contact 311. Jarneski says graffiti like this should also be reported to Winnipeg police if it hasn't been already.
Certainly, if I had seen that graffiti, my call would not have been to 311. My call would have been to the Winnipeg Police Service.
The city says the location has been tagged several times over the past few weeks and it's been cleaned up each time. It says graffiti that's hateful in nature, like this underpass, is given priority. Winnipeg police said in late October, officers were seeing an increase in suspected hate-motivated crimes, including graffiti last month, amid rising tensions over the conflict between Israel and Hamas.
It makes me feel sad, sick into my stomach, and worried. It's sad that we have to see these kinds of graffitis and hateful display and rhetoric in our beautiful city.
In Ottawa, Winnipeg South Centre Member of Parliament Ben Carr says people are traumatized.
We have to keep the temperature down, because what happens when the temperature rises is that it fuels this incitement of hate.
It's had a terrible effect on us. We've had to increase our security, of course.
Jarneski hopes people can get back their sense of safety, but she says hateful images and messages aren't helping. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And in fact, there has been an increase in the number of high-profile threats against Jews and Jewish institutions across Canada since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. CBC's Kate McKenna has reaction from Ottawa.
Canada's Prime Minister with a dire warning.
We're seeing right now a rise in anti-Semitism that is terrifying. This is not who we are as Canadians. This is something that is not acceptable in Canada, period.
His comments follow multiple reports of threats against Jewish people and institutions. Montreal police are investigating the remnants of Molotov cocktails at a West Island synagogue and a nearby Jewish community center.
We just had a firebombing at the Beth Tikva synagogue where I grew up in Dollar des Ormeaux, and it is not something that we could take lightly. It is really important that police need to crack down now.
Quebec lawmakers are also calling for a police investigation into comments made by this controversial imam, Adil Sharkawi. He made a speech calling for the extermination of Zionist aggressors.
From my perspective, they seem to have crossed the line and gone into criminal speech, hate speech. I've never seen a time when Jewish Canadians have felt as scared, as angry, as frustrated in a country that we've been part of since before Confederation existed.
This is a terrible time in our history. The Jewish community is rightfully scared, and I never thought in my lifetime I'd see anti-Semitism like this in our streets.
Jewish advocacy organizations say anti-Semitism was on the rise before the war between Israel and Hamas, but things are getting worse.
What we see today, as we saw in the West Island, is the continued deterioration of the conditions against the Jewish community.
The federal government pledged an additional $5 million this week. It's for communities that could be targets of hate-motivated attacks. They're able to apply for funding and do things like hire temporary private security. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
On a federal government website, Amira Al-Gawabi, Canada's special representative on combating Islamophobia, says she met with the Prime Minister last week to discuss a spike in anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab and Islamophobic sentiment post-Hamas attacks of October 7th. Hundreds attended a special ceremony today at the Nygard Centre here in Winnipeg for Indigenous Veterans Day. It's a chance to honour the contributions and bravery of Indigenous soldiers. CBC's Emily Brass spoke with people about the importance of this day.
I've just picked up the drum maybe 2 months ago, so we've been practicing at work and learning songs for doing ceremony. Felt pretty powerful, pretty blessed to be at a ceremony like this, and you know, just the amount of people in the room, you could really feel the energy.
My father, my daughter, and my niece, who are also veterans. So very proud moment today to acknowledge all of them and everyone else, because it's been a long time coming. Well, he came home with nothing, you know, didn't have nothing, but started life on his own with his family. So, you know, what else could you do if the government's not there to help you? Especially for the war that you were fighting for, you know, for everyone.
My aunt's correct. When my grandpa came back, he didn't receive any compensation, whereas other non-Indigenous soldiers received land, farmland, oceanfront land, money for education. So that's one thing that I think was unfair.
Kego wika odikesita literally means let us never forget. And so today, as we pay tribute to those who have served and those who continue to serve, we recommit to you that we will never forget your sacrifice.
Two of my friends came back with me to Canada after 10 years, and they both hung themselves, you know. So this isn't just going to war and coming back, or going to peacekeeping, coming back. It's a big deal. You know, we have to recognize we have it really good here in Canada, and you never want to have a war here in Canada. And all of us are responsible for that.
She was given the name Mushkode Bishiki Ikwe Igban, or Buffalo Woman, by community members and elders. She's believed to be one of 4 victims of alleged serial killer Jeremy Skibicki. But nearly a year after Winnipeg police announced a first-degree murder charge in connection with her death, her identity remains unknown. CBC's Elena Cole reports.
Steps away from the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, red dresses blow in the wind. Among them, one marked for Buffalo Woman, also called Mushkode Bishike Ikwe Iban. It's the name given to the unknown woman police believe was killed by alleged serial killer Jeremy Skibicki.
It saddens me for sure that she doesn't have a family out here advocating for her and fighting for her to come home, but me and my family have said her name plenty of times.
This is Jordan Myron. This area has been turned into a camp to remind people to search for her sister, Mercedes Myron. Last December, police announced Skibicki had been charged with first-degree murder in the deaths of Myron, Morgan Harris, and Buffalo Woman. He'd already been charged for Rebecca Contois' death. Some of Contois' remains were found at the Brady Road landfill. Police have said they believe Myron and Harris's bodies are in the Prairie Green landfill north of Winnipeg, though it was never searched. But little has been made public about Buffalo Woman.
We posted them heavy on Main Street.
That hasn't stopped George Robinson from trying to find out who she is. He's married to Morgan Harris's cousin. We met him at Camp Morgan, the other spot set up in the call for landfill searches. With only a few details released by police, he went out looking, hoping to find information that would help identify Buffalo Woman.
We hit all the shelters. We went down Main Street where all the most vulnerable population is. We went into the North End, West End. We went down to every single encampment, that we could find.
Police have said they believe Buffalo Woman was Indigenous, in her 20s and average build, that she wore a reversible baby fat jacket like this one, and that their investigation suggests she was the first of the 4 women to be killed. Police say it happened on or around March 15th, 2022. Robinson says he and one of Harris's daughters still spend time looking at missing cases from outside the province to see if there's a link. He says looking for missing people, even those he doesn't know, is something he has to do.
I mostly grew up with my grandparents. I ended up running away from home when I was 13 years old. I grew up through my teen years without any of my family searching for me. So there's something that I have to do in order to, kind of emotional stuff from when I was younger.
I didn't put one on this one.
He hasn't given up hope that Buffalo Woman will be identified. Police have never said if they have a theory about where her remains are. Jordan Myron says she'll keep advocating for both the Prairie Green and the Brady Road landfills to be searched.
We're doing everything we can to bring all of these women home.
I asked Winnipeg Police about the work that has gone into trying to identify Buffalo Woman. A spokesperson said the investigation is ongoing and the matter is before the court. Skibicki pleaded not guilty in a pretrial that started this week. A red dress and buffalo headdress sit in the courtroom in honor of the unknown woman. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is paying a visit today to Winnipeg. She's spent time meeting with members of the new NDP government. For more on that, the CBC's Ian Fraze joins us live from the Manitoba Legislative Building. So Ian, what's the purpose of this meeting?
Janet, to discuss some shared priorities. Behind me, down in the Premier's office, is where the new NDP government hosted Deputy Prime Minister Cynthia Freeland to discuss again those shared priorities. It is the first time. It is the first meeting the province has had with members of the new federal government. During that meeting, Freeland telling Canoe that his election inspired a lot of people. Canoe saying, again, during some of those pleasantries, Canoe expressed that, that they do have some shared priorities and that this can help Manitobans, and he hopes that they can help Manitobans find better jobs and help with affordability. So again, just a meeting to discuss shared priorities, and then tomorrow there will be a press conference to discuss another subject.
Of course, Ian, this meeting comes just 2 days after Wab Kinew revealed he's actually at odds with Freeland's government about the carbon tax on heating and natural gas. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, undoubtedly carbon tax will be a subject that, may have been brought up here during this meeting. Canoe just, during that Premier's meeting 2 days ago in Halifax, publicly asking Ottawa to remove the carbon tax from natural gas. Manitoba and other premiers want the same exemption the feds gave to people who heat their homes with oil, a policy that helps Atlantic Canada in particular. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said, though, that he's not interested in making any more carve-outs, any more exemptions for the carbon tax. In just one other story, Janet, Tom Lindsay, the MLA for Flin Flon, is the only candidate for the Speaker election, for the Speaker of the House. That election will happen tomorrow, and Lindsay will be the only candidate. Again, he's the MLA for Flin Flon. We'll have more on that story tomorrow. Janet.
Thank you so much. The CBC's Ian Fraze reporting live tonight from the Legislative Building. The city of Winnipeg came into existence 150 years ago today. Happy birthday. The city marked the occasion with an event out inside the former archives building at the historic Carnegie Library. A devastating flood forced that library to close 10 years ago. But CBC's Cameron McLean got a look inside ahead of a major renovation.
So this is where the primary vault will be. So all these shelves will be replaced with rolling shelving.
Conrad Cron is the city's records manager. He's showing us the once and future home of the Winnipeg Archives. The building was undergoing renovations in 2013 when a massive rainstorm flooded it. Now, the city is embarking on a $13 million renovation project to restore the archives. It will include a new temperature and humidity-controlled vault, a research room, and multi-purpose room for community events.
We want to be more of a hub for the community, and we want to make sure that this is seen as a community source for their records to both tell their stories and to share their stories with the future.
Mayor Scott Gillingham used the building to announce plans for celebrations marking 150 years since the city's founding, including historical photos and artifacts from 2 time capsules dating from the 19th century. They contained grasshoppers and damaged wheat. Sarah Ramsden is senior archivist with the city.
It's just one of the examples of some of the challenges Winnipeggers in 1875, like what they were dealing with. So the grasshoppers, plagues, and scourges on the prairies at that time.
The city is offering grants of up to $5,000 to organizations for commemorative projects. There will also be a new time capsule to be sealed at the end of next year and opened on the city's 200th anniversary.
I know I'm going to be penning a letter. I've invited many other leaders in our community, including Premier Wap Canoe, President David Chartrand of the Manitoba Métis Federation, our Treaty 1 chiefs as well.
A consultant is preparing detailed designs for the archives renovation. Work is set to start next year with a reopening planned for 2026. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Shania Twain gave her fans here in Winnipeg a great show last night at the Canada Life Centre. But the road out of town was not kind to her crew. In Saskatchewan, 2 vehicles from Twain's tour were involved in a highway accident on the Trans-Canada. Happened this morning. A crew bus rolled and a truck jackknifed around 7 a.m. near Wolseley, Saskatchewan. They were driving from Winnipeg to Saskatoon. A statement from Twain's manager says there was inclement weather at the time. Some members of the production crew were taken to nearby hospitals. The USA branch for Beat the Street, a company specializing in band and crew busing, confirmed it was their vehicle involved in the crash. The jury is deliberating in the sexual assault trial of Peter Nygard. This comes after several weeks of evidence and testimony. The 82-year-old former fashion mogul is facing 5 charges of sexual assault and 1 of forcible confinement. Nygard has pleaded not guilty to all charges. CBC's Jamie Strachan has this report from Toronto.
The fate of 82-year-old former fashion mogul Peter Nygard is now in the hands of a Toronto jury. Over the course of the 6-week trial, the jury heard very different stories relating to 5 alleged sexual assaults that took place in the private bedroom of Nygard's Toronto headquarters from the late 1980s to 2005. The Crown painted Nygard as a power-hungry sexual predator who lured the 5 women to his headquarters under the guise of a job interview or a tour. All 5 women testified using graphic details to describe their alleged sexual assaults by Nygard. The women also told the court they didn't report the assaults at the time out of fear the powerful Nygard would ruin their careers. Therapist Shannon Maroney worked closely with 4 of the 5 complainants in this case.
One of the most stressful things a person can do is go on the stand and be cross-examined on the most painful moments of your life. Of course, now is a very tense time. Just wondering exactly what the jury will decide.
Nygard testified in his own defense and said he never met 4 of the 5 complainants. He also said he never would have done the things he is accused of. His lawyer told the court the women, some of whom are involved in a class action suit against Nygard, are simply gold diggers. More than 85 women are now part of that suit. In his charge to the jury, Justice Robert Goldstein reminded jurors that the charges against Nygard must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. He also pointed out similar patterns of behavior described by the 5 accusers, who had never met each other. There are a number of things the jury didn't hear. Nygard originally faced 11 charges in this case involving 8 different women. They also didn't know that Nygard was denied bail in this case. Most importantly, they were not aware that Nygard is facing similar charges in Manitoba, Quebec, and New York, involving dozens of victims. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
The bison herd at Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation received some belated Halloween treats yesterday.
There we go.
Oh, that looks fun. More than 100 people braved the snow for Sioux Valley's Honoring the Buffalo ceremony. The celebration saw students share leftover Halloween jack-o'-lanterns with the bison while learning traditional Dakota teachings about the animals. Denisa DePaula is Sioux Valley's organizer who helped put this together. She says the community's history with the animal is important to acknowledge.
We would use them for food, for shelter, for building things, for tools, like every part. And, you know, back in the day when that had happened, they had taken care of us, you know, and so now it's our turn to take care of them. And so I think it should be honored.
Sioux Valley's bison herd has more than 100 animals, including 14 white buffalo. White buffalo, sacred and spiritual animals.
There's one at Assiniboine Park, and I think its name is Blizzard. So
look at you with the memory. Look at you. Well, Blizzard will be feeling right at home with all the wet snow and messiness we've been having.
Another 5 centimeters on the way for tonight, so maybe a little bit of shoveling in the morning. Hard to tell how much of this is going to land on contact or melt on contact with the road surface, but we may be dealing with some pretty bad highways again tomorrow. Have a look at the radar, and things are kind of organizing to the northwest of us. The winds are now shifting to the northwest from the west. Let's zoom in on that, and you can see a lot of cloud across the province. That's what the satellite is showing us. The radar shows us what's falling out of the cloud, and this is a 3-hour loop, so you can kind of get an idea here of the motion coming from the northwest and right down into the northern Red River Valley. And if we look at Futurecast in a second, it'll show that this really does intensify overnight. We'll also have a look here in a second at some projected snowfall amounts, but it is snowing now. Our surface temperature is at about 0.3, but so is the dew point. So that makes the relative humidity at 100%. We're not seeing a gust factor right now, but westerly winds at 30 is the last mark from the airport right at the top of the hour. So let's go from 6 p.m. here to about 10 p.m. And you can see this is a pretty solid area of snow, wet snow, that will land and continue on into the morning hours. Still snowing early on Thursday, but I think after that, after about 10:30, 11 in the morning, it just turns into a cloudy sky. So I'm saying tapering to flurries. And then as we get into Friday, this system is well off to the east, and we start to see a few more breaks in the cloud cover. There's a look at 3:30 on Friday, and then some clearing really late in the day and overnight into Saturday morning. So it should be a much brighter day on Saturday. Snowfall amounts tonight and to about 9 o'clock on Thursday. 4 centimeters for Gimli, 5 in Winnipeg, 4 in Piney, includes Sprague in that, maybe another 1 in Brandon overnight. And then if we advance that through the day Thursday and on through Friday, we get maybe another 1 or 2 centimeters out of that. And that would be the Thursday snowfall, not so much the Friday snowfall. So winds today have been generally westerly, at least here in the Winnipeg area. But when we get into tomorrow, Thursday, 11 a.m., we're still looking at gusts to 50 or higher. So 30 gusting to 50 in this brighter colored area, even stronger over the lakes. So near the lakes, on the leeward side of the lakes, we could see some lake effect snow. All right, if you're not quite ready for the onslaught of winter just yet, here's some good news. Upper level pattern is bringing this upper ridge and the milder air into our region as we head into the second half of the weekend and on into next week. All right, -1 with wet snow tonight, about 5 centimeters. Another 2 or 3 tomorrow. I think it's closer to 2, but -1 in the morning. Northwest winds at 30, gusting to 50 in the afternoon, a high of 0. And then we do see our temperature kind of stabilize, but start to warm up. So it stabilizes into the weekend. These flurries would be melt on contact. After the flurries are gone, we could get to 4 degrees on Sunday, and Janet, even warmer from Monday and Tuesday next week.
I will take it, John. I will take it and run. Thanks very much.
You bet.
A new play called Pals, or Scenes from a Friendship, premieres at Winnipeg Jewish Theatre tomorrow night. The show was written and is performed by longtime friends Diane Flax and Richard Greenblatt. I had the chance to meet them yesterday and learn more.
We started writing it together during COVID, and part of the reason was that, you know, during COVID you started to find out who your closest people were, the people that you were going to spend your Zoom time with.
Last chance to stand up for me.
Not now.
What am I supposed to do? Go right past her?
Relax.
I feel totally exposed here. I hate being bad, and I am not bad.
Hi, she's still here.
I hate you.
You're bringing this, what's described as a lighthearted, comedic look at friendship over a long term to Winnipeg at a time that we could all really use a laugh.
Yep. I hope so.
So how does that feel? Because it is sort of an elephant in the room that we're all coming in with a weight on our shoulders at the moment.
That's right. I mean, no, there is some I think it's fair to call it a dramedy, you know, that there is some drama to it, there is some conflict in it, but our kind of default with each other especially is to be kind of comic, and we love that aspect of it. So I think the comedy almost serves to heighten the drama when it finally comes, and hopefully it's moving as well. And hopefully people will relate this story to their own friendships. When are you guys moving in again?
Last weekend.
What? Oh my God, why didn't you call and remind me?
I did. I left a message with your naughty wife.
What?
And I have to say, when we started rehearsal, like, I was personally down. Like, I was suffering, first of all, suffering from just the set feelings of what's going on in the world and worrying about my kids and all that stuff. Deleted the Instagram from the phone, and just being here in this room and having so much fun and dealing with real issues that are really happening between human beings really did help as an antidote to that.
You do feel it, though, I think, more in theatre than in film, because the people are right there.
Exactly.
The energy is right there.
Totally.
And dealing with friendships, I mean, so many friendships right now are strained. There are
Totally
people who cannot
That's
speak to
right.
each other at the moment.
You're exactly right. I mean, you're hitting it on the head. I think
Yeah.
that what this show tries to do is have these two people walk through really intense life moments when easily, and we come to a point at the end of the play or towards the end of the play where you think, are they going to remain friends? And they need to take that step, make that choice or not.
And it's an active choice
Yeah.
to actually have long-term friendships. It takes work, like any relationship, and you have to commit to the work. So it comes to a point where you go, is it worth it to keep on going or not? So that's really what it's about. And it's about keeping that person in your life and not imagining life without that person. And it's just a friend. It's just a friend. It's can be a more intimate relationship than one has even with one's partner.
That's right.
Diane and Richard, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The gate was closed again today for Canadians desperate to get out of Gaza. While hundreds wait to leave, those who were able to leave yesterday are now in Cairo trying to figure out how to get out of Egypt. We'll bring you the latest after the break. The first group of Canadians to make it through the Rafah crossing from Gaza into Egypt is in Cairo. Buses carrying 75 Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and their families pulled into the Egyptian capital after a long drive from the border. CBC's Tom Perry reports.
The end of the road, but not the end of the journey. Exhausted Canadians who made their escape from Gaza arrive in Cairo safe but still shaken.
We felt like that we would lose our lives in any seconds, you know.
Fadi Abusedo, his wife and 4-month-old, full of relief to be out, full of regret for the family he left behind.
You don't know what's going to happen to them. You understand? You don't know what's going to happen to them. Like, yeah, maybe I got lucky to get out, but for them, they have no chance.
Diplomatic staff at the Canadian Embassy in Cairo today helped evacuees fill out forms, apply for visas, and find tickets to their next destination. Some trying to make their way to Canada, not sure how they'll make that happen.
In a day, I lost everything that I own. My house, my parents' house even, I lost it. My cars got destroyed completely.
Families starting over with almost nothing, but finally safe.
It's complicated. Leaving my family, my house, my friends there in the war and bombing, and now I'm safe. My daughters are safe. There's my life there.
For some, exiting Gaza comes with fear, but also hope. Yara Abu Al-Jadian gave birth to her daughter Sila in Gaza just last month. Her husband, a permanent resident back in Canada, hopeful the family can soon be reunited.
It's not a dream anymore. It's a real. Like, at least my wife and my daughter right now, it's a very safe. They are very safe and they will be joining me here.
Is there a birth certificate?
Yara says her baby has no birth certificate, just one factor that will make bringing the family together complicated. But in Gaza, nothing is easy. On the Gaza side of the Rafah crossing, more Canadians wait their turn to reach safety.
Bombing was everywhere and was randomly. And once you heard about friends and relatives who lost their lives, you still thought that you are the next.
But on this day, it was not to be. The Rafah crossing was closed yet again, with 40 Canadians unable to pass. Tom Perry, CBC News, Cairo.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has repeated Ottawa's call for a humanitarian pause in Gaza to help get Canadians out and aid in.
A humanitarian pause is going to allow all the hostages to be released, allow us to continue doing the work of getting all foreign nationals out of Gaza. We got 75 of 80 Canadians out yesterday, which is solid progress, but there is so much more to do. And a pause long enough to start not just getting aid in, but getting resources and medication and supports while we begin doing the work of de-escalating the situation.
For more than 50 years, pandas have been a symbol of international cooperation between China and the United States. But with increasing tensions between the two countries, the era of panda diplomacy appears to be at an end. CBC's Cameron McIntosh explains.
China's most popular diplomats being recalled. 3 pandas, Meizhong, Tian Tian, and their son, Xiao Qiji, packed into special crates, leaving for China, disappointing many who have been visiting here for years.
And I was here in August for, I think, one of the birthdays. So I tend to do that type of thing.
It is international politics, for gosh sakes. China's pissed off.
Pandas first arrived in the U.S. in 1972, after Richard Nixon's groundbreaking visit to China. When First Lady Pat Nixon expressed her love for the animals, the Chinese government saw an opportunity.
The gift of the pandas, which all children, whatever age, will enjoy, and I include myself in that category.
Yes, pandemonium ensued, the bears drawing millions to Washington's Smithsonian National Zoo. Over the decades, a symbol of international goodwill and true soft power. A Chinese ambassador once called a panda the other ambassador in Washington. Now, says the current ambassador,
giant pandas belong to China.
So those FedEx trucks en route to the airport, shots of crates loading onto planes, and that bear's face, all symbols of declining relations.
I call this punitive panda diplomacy. Rather than panda diplomacy, which was positive, I think this is a Chinese overreaction to the situation between the United States and China.
There is also a scientific partnership here, which the National Zoo is celebrating.
In the more than 50 years that we have been working with these animals, giant pandas have been moved off the endangered species list.
While the politics are murky, the National Zoo will still go ahead with an upgrade to its panda facility, hoping diplomacy once again prevails. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Washington.
Scam artists have been targeting small businesses with threats to turn off their power if they don't pay up. We'll have more on this story after the break. Scam artists have been targeting small businesses with threats to turn off their power. In a phone call, the fraudsters claim to be the local utility and give the victim just minutes to make a payment. While some people catch on, others are caught off guard. CBC's TJ Deer takes a look at a couple of recent cases in Ontario.
Dion Riom and his wife were in the middle of a rush period a couple of weeks ago when they received a call from a 1866 number. The person on the other end claimed to be from Enwin Utilities, saying Riom had to e-transfer $363 in unpaid fees within 45 minutes or their hydro would be shut off. In a state of panic, he paid.
I'm not very naive, but they got me on that one because I was nervous they're going to shut my power off, and we just started.
But at the same time, his wife called Enwin to verify if the call was legitimate. Less than a minute after he paid, the Rioms found out they were scammed.
I called the police, and they just said I had to file the report online. And I said to them, well, I have a 1866 number, and I have the e-transfer and address, and I'm like, why can't they do anything faster?
Riom contacted his bank. They sent this letter saying the business was liable for the transaction, and if you continue to persist in these activities, which we view as a risk to both you and CIBC, we will need to consider additional steps, including terminating our relationship with you. The bank told CBC News that it's looking into the matter. Others in the city were targeted, including this hair salon across the street. While Riom was caught at the wrong time, the staff here caught on.
It just didn't sound right at all. Someone who is trying to tell you that you're in arrears doesn't sound like a drill sergeant. So that basically, put my senses up.
Enwin says they don't employ what they call high-pressure tactics, such as immediately demanding money.
We do our best to try to send out communications to warn our customers, mainly via social media, that the scammers are out there in force, and obviously they're not representing our organization.
We called the phone number both Riom and Bonato received the calls from.
Thank you for calling SMUD, your community-owned, not-for-profit electric service.
Eventually, we reached someone who said his name was Roger, but he hung up. The same thing happened when we called again and spoke with a woman who said her name was Roberta. Riom says if anyone receives a similar call,
step back and take a minute to think about it, or you hang up the phone and you try and figure things out before you do anything drastically.
TJ Deer, CBC News, Windsor.
Weather Update is brought to you by the Art and Beauty of the National Ballet of Ukraine, January 29th at the Burton Cummings Theatre. Tickets at nationalballetukraine.com.
John Sauter joins us again, and it's snowing downtown.
Yeah, still snowing. It's amazing how warm it can be at this time of year.
Yes.
Just 3 years ago, record high, 19.2 on this day. So people, I think, were on golf courses. Not tonight, though. Don't go golfing at all in the next couple of days. Let's get to the current numbers, and I'll show you what it's doing around the Winnipeg area. We've been holding steady around 0 to +1 through the entire day. Morris at 1, same with Eli. 0 and +1s around Lake Manitoba, Portage La Prairie. 2 degrees, Morden and Winkler. And back into Ontario, we're looking at 0s for Kenora and Red Lake. So some of these temperatures are slightly below 0. So tonight, for instance, in the northwestern Ontario, there is a risk of some freezing drizzle. Low tonight in Flin Flon, -2, -3 in Thompson. These numbers relatively warm for this time of year across northern Manitoba. The low, you can see the circulating cloud around it, is right around the Ontario-Manitoba border right now and is continuing to move off to the east, bringing another 2 to 4 centimeters in and around Red Lake, another couple of centimeters in Kenora. Some of that will be mixed with freezing drizzle and some showers, and then some flurries through the Fort Francis area. The rest of us are seeing anywhere from 2 to 5 centimeters of snow. That's just tonight into tomorrow morning, and a little bit more on the way for tomorrow. 2 to 4 centimeters Brandon, 5 to 10 possible around Dauphin and Swan River, and a lot of that is because of the higher terrain. That air is forced up the escarpment, and the air cools and enhances snow and rainfall amounts, really. Across the north, we've got periods of light snow, at times mixed with freezing drizzle, flurries, windy conditions in Churchill, gusting to 60. Temperatures tomorrow will be falling off to -9 in the afternoon, so you won't do any better than -6, but generally cloudy. Most of the flurry activity is in Churchill and eastern regions. And then here in the south, in southwest, Some light snow in the morning, followed by just cloudy conditions and temperatures still around 0 to +1. Winnipeg will be at 0, couple of centimeters in addition to the 5 tonight, tapering to flurries in the afternoon, and that is much the case across the south. 2 to 4 centimeters tomorrow in through Pinawa, and we'll see more snow or freezing drizzle in northwestern Ontario.
Thanks, John.
You bet.
Concordo, l'aumento del personale per PR e comunicazioni in Canada è evidente.
Ever wish you could speak another language? Well, now you can, or at least you can appear to. We'll tell you about it after the break. About a week ago, I spoke with investigative journalist and former CBC Manitoba managing editor Cecil Rosner about his latest book entitled Manipulating the Message: How Powerful Forces Shape the News. In it, he exposes how the work of a shrinking field of time-strapped journalists could be influenced by a growing group of public relations professionals. Another looming threat to the truth is artificial intelligence.
Concordo, l'aumento del personale per PR e comunicazioni in Canada è evidente.
You are looking at a clip of my interview with Cecil Rosner. Only in this clip, Cecil answers in Italian. which never actually happened. Cecil doesn't, in fact, speak Italian. He joins us once again. First of all, Cecil, how did you make that clip of you speaking Italian?
Thanks, Janet. You're right. I do not speak a word of Italian. It's generative AI. There is software out there now in which you can take a video of yourself or of any other person speaking whatever language they're speaking and translate it into one of dozens of other languages. And not only does it translate it, but it mimics the voice, it clones your voice, it matches up the lips exactly, it syncs them up. And so it makes it appear that, in this case, I was saying everything I said in Italian, even though I don't speak the language at all.
Well, forgive us if this is a little confusing at home, but let's play that video again just so you can see how closely it really does match Cecil's lips. Let's see if this will work while we're talking underneath it. That's what was startling to me, is just how convincing this was. Now, I don't see any harm in, okay, great, it can make me speak Italian. But what do you see as the potential downside, the danger of technology like this being so readily available?
You know, I think as with all AI and as with a lot of different types of technology, there's a lot of good potential effects that can come. And on the other hand, there's some potentially very bad things. On the good side here, there's, you know, this is good for perhaps translation or video creation for companies and so forth. But for journalists trying to figure out, and the public trying to figure out what's true and what's authentic in social media or in their news feeds, the potential here for a lot of mischief is huge. I mean, we've already seen some of this happen in over time. You know, the word deep fake has been around for a while, but most of them have been very crude. I'm sure everyone has seen them. There's Donald Trump or some other politician purporting to say something, but someone has just manipulated it. And it was all very, very crude and easy to spot in many cases that it was fake. This, I think, is not very easy to spot. And unfortunately, I think it has the potential to dupe a lot of people and create all kinds of problems, both for journalists who are trying to figure out what's true and just for the general public as they're scrolling through their feeds.
Is there anything the public can do then with this technology getting better to really arm themselves against it?
Well, for one thing, I think it's just yet another, and I mentioned this in my book repeatedly, like it's one more reason why we can't come to instant judgments about things we see or read or hear. We have to sit back and think about them carefully, deliberately, use critical thinking. Don't instantly share a piece of content just because you think, wow, that looks great, or that's impressive, or I really agree with that. So it just means a lot more deliberate consideration of things. For journalists, I think in the future, we won't be able to take any of this for granted, and we'll have to literally go out and verify every piece of video content to make sure that it's authentic and that it hasn't been manipulated in the way that this particular video has been.
Cecil Rosner, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Janet.
There's our messy street of Portage Avenue. You can see the snow coming down. John's back with our 7-day forecast after the break, and then we'll bring you your daily lift. You're watching CBC.
Well, this low pressure system kind of stalls over the province, hangs around through the day tomorrow. Some more snow tonight, a little bit more tomorrow, and then generally cloudy. And then it's time for the darn thing to move along, okay? By the weekend, we're back into brighter skies. 0 Saturday, a warm-up Sunday. Could be a little messy, though, with some wet flurries, and then quite mild as we head on into early next week. Shania Twain was in Winnipeg last night, and the most amazing thing happened to some young fans.
Dancers Sienna, Mikey, and Jacob Harris got the chance of a lifetime. Here is your Daily Lift. Isn't that amazing? The Ivan Flett Memorial Dancers with Shania Twain up on stage at Canada Life Centre last night. This dance troupe, originally from Saugeen First Nation, mixes traditional Métis jigging with modern hip-hop dance. The Harris siblings, clearly incredible. They recently posted a message to Shania on social media asking if they could join her on stage. Shania clearly said yes. And look at them, up on stage while she sings the song Don't Be Stupid. Incredible dancers, did not miss the opportunity or a beat. Wow.
So talented, really. And I'm not talking about Shania. I mean, she's talented too.
She is too, but let's hear it for the Harrises, right?
Yeah, you hear the crowd just screaming. That's so great.
Great, I got goosebumps. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you at 11 and again tomorrow. Bye.